We're chapter 2. We're going to go from Mishnah 5. Parak Daled Mishnah Hey. Right, so in the previous Mishnayos, we were talking that if your field was planted with one thing and you wanted to switch, you would wait till the seeds germinate and then you would plow them over and then you could plant the new thing. So here in Mishnah Hey we say Haisis Sadei Zrua Kanvis Eiluf.
So mine starts Haya Rosh Tor.
No, you're in Parak Gimel. Well, you're later. Here.
That's later. Maybe
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna skip
this. If your field is planted with canvas or luf, so these seeds are the Mishnah is about to say the problem with these is they don't germinate the year you plant them. So once you plant them, you're kind of locked in. So lo yehi zayru ba gabem. So you can't plant something else on top of them since they're not going to grow this year anyway. So I may as well get another crop. That you can't do. She'enan oisin elo l'shali shanim, because they only produce after 3 years. So you have to plant them and you're going to wait for your crop.
So what's the issue?
Of how you can't plant two crops in the same field, even though the canvas crop isn't going to grow till next year.
Two different things that
Two
you
different,
shouldn't.
right?
Which Mishnah?
Mishnah Hey. Tvua.
Note?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tvua she'ala ba sviche istim. If you have grain that grew in it on its own, while the istim, which might be indigo or something like that, so some other valuable plant happens to be growing in your wheat, v'chein makam hagranos, or the place where you deal with all your threshing, etc. So there's a high quantity of assorted types of seeds over there. Shalom minim harbe, that many different types start growing over there. V'chein tilsin, or some other or not plant you did not intentionally plant that starts growing. Shalom minei tzmachim, that's other things grow in it. So in all these cases, even though you have what would technically be a forbidden mixture growing, you don't have to go and weed it since it grew on its own. However, if you do weed or thin out whatever it is that happens to be growing over there, then then we say, since you've shown that you want something growing over here, you can only have one species growing over here, so get rid of everything else.
Well, the question is, if you're taking advantage of it, then you may have a problem.
Right. Then you have to make sure it's only one type.
Yeah.
Mishnah Vav. If you want to make your field different patches of different things, so I'm going to put rows across the length of the whole field of different types. So how much mikol minimum of different types? So how much space do I have to leave between the rows? That's a clear distinction. So Beishamai say shalish tlamim shel psicha. The 3 furrows of the width of the furrows that they normally make when they plow. Beis Hillel mali ha'ol hashironi, the width of the type of yoke that they would use on their oxen in Shironi. When the Mishnah says v'kroivim divrei elu is k'divrei elu, there's not such a big difference between the two. They're two very similar amounts. That's how much space you'd have to leave between the two different crops that you're interested in planting, and then that'd be considered 2 separate fields. Mishnah Zayin. If you have an angle of wheat going into barley, so I have a barley field planted one way, and I have next to it a field of wheat that is that's rotated 45 degrees from the wheat. So there's a corner of the wheat that's up against the barley. So even though they're touching, that's mutter, that's okay. Because it's very clear that this is the end of one field and that's the start of a new field. It doesn't look like a mixture, it looks like 2 separate fields.
And would have to be. It may not have to be that same distance apart.
Right. So here we're saying when they're parallel, you need distance. Otherwise, they look like one big thing. Here, where they're clearly different directions, they could be up against each other. If my neighbor has a field and I have a field and I planted wheat and he planted something else, that's mutter l'smechle I can plant a little bit of whatever it is my neighbor is planting on the edge of my field, because it looks like, not that I have two things in my field, it just looks like his field continues into mine. Right, so my neighbor planted barley. I
Right.
planted wheat. Let's say I left 8 feet at the end of my field, and I want to plant that with barley. So that I could do, because that looks like a continuation of his field, as opposed to me mixing barley and wheat in my field. If we both have wheat, I can plant a single row in the middle, like as a border of flax. Because again, it doesn't look like I'm planting flax over here, it looks like I'm just using it to demarcate the border of our fields. However, you can't do other things, because flax is unique, the Mishnah says, because that one row of it is really not very useful. The only reason why you want to plant it is as like a test crop to see if it will grow well over here, but a small amount of linen isn't really even worth processing, as opposed to, I don't know, if you plant carrots, so then maybe, well, people might want you only need a few carrots, so one row might be all you need. Rabbi Shimon Omer, he says, no, it's not specifically linen. You could plant any single row. It's clear that it's just either a test or a demarcation. It doesn't look like a mixture. Rabbi Yossi goes the other way. He says linen flax is more lenient. That even randomly in the middle of your field, if you want to just put a test row in, it'll be clear to everyone that that's what you're doing, and it won't look like you're planting different things in the same field, and that would be okay. Fine, and finally Mishnah Ches says, Ein seimchin l'sada tvua chardal v'charia. You can't put next to your wheat field neither mustard nor charia, some other thing, because these negatively affect the wheat with the cross-pollination apparently. So it looks like you're growing, and mustard is a crop that you don't need so much of. So one furrow of mustard might be enough. So it looks like I planted however much mustard I needed in my wheat field. But if your field's vegetables, you could put next to it chardal v'charia, because mustard does not negatively affect the vegetables. So then again, I just planted, it could be, that's mine. Doesn't look clear that one person planted two different things over here. V'seimech labor, you could always plant next to a field that you left fallow, villanir, or a field that you plowed and didn't plant, v'legafa, or a fence, v'lederach, or a path, v'legeder gvayar sar tvachim, or a fence 10 tvachim tall, v'lecharetz shu amak asar, or a ditch that's 10 tvachim deep, v'arba and 4 tvachim wide, u'ilan shu mesach ala aretz, or a tree that hangs down onto the ground, u'lesela gvayar sar, if there's a rock coming up that's 10 tvachim tall, v'rachav arba. All these things are considered a clear break in the field, and therefore I could plant two different things on two different sides of them. Okay, we'll stop here.